Right. Sorry about the wait on that. Just give me a moment. I just need to readjust my camera. And zoom. There you go. I don't want to focus. There we go. Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me back again. So this is part 2 of the sculpting process. I'm going to try a different camera angle because I actually found yesterday that after I shut down, I moved the camera, had a look at what I was working on, and found that everything was out of shape. So I basically made a hollow template to fit over the skull, so it might be outer edge of the original template. But I also found out that the size and shape of the skull was actually completely hard to rejig that. What I've also done is the build-up method that I was using originally, I wasn't quite happy with. So what I've started doing is to shave it down at a gradual angle, and then I'm going to make the three-dimensional elements of it. So effectively what I'll be doing is something like this. Where are we now? Back a bit. There we go. Yeah, so normally on a relief sculpt, you will find that the actual image itself looks like it's three-dimensional, but when you turn it to the side, it's actually quite flat. So it's getting that sort of element in there, really. And that's what I'm going to be doing with this. So I'll crack on with it. Hopefully people will join in and have a conversation with me, so it'll be nice. Hi, James. How are we doing, mate? Everything's going well for you at the moment? So what I'll do is I will work on the other side and just pull all that back. This to give that forward pull of what you would expect of a Triceratops skull. Doing originally just wasn't working for me, having it layered. So hopefully this new way of sculpting it will look much more pleasing. And I've also got to elevate the horn like I have done on this side as well. So at the moment it's currently flat, and again I wasn't quite happy with that, so bringing it out will add to that effect. Let's just take all of this right down, just literally raising from the actual. So I've just literally come from watching one of the old William Hartnell episodes of Doctor Who, which was quite entertaining. I'm currently on season 2, and they've just I think it's the second episode of the Romans storyline. It's quite interesting to watch the older episodes, and some of the writing's a little bit hammy, I would say, but you know, considering it's 1960s, it's not bad for its time. I'm quite surprised about some of the effects, though. Seeing, I think it was one of the Daleks episodes where rather than having multiple Daleks in a room, what they would do is have effectively cardboard cutouts of Daleks in the background, so it makes the room feel fuller than what it actually is. And it never really hit me until literally kind of like maybe second or third episode, and it's like, oh, such a simple idea, but it works so well. Yeah, the series want to BritBox and do the 30-day trial to start with. I think it's like £5 odd or something after that. You can get all the classic Doctors on there, because originally my wife was looking at getting the DVDs of the classic series, and I think when you boil down to the cost of each of the DVDs, you're going to end up spending quite a small fortune. And unless you're into kind of like some of the behind the scenes stuff that they might have on there, for me personally, I'd rather just watch the series and just say that I've watched them rather than go into the actual lore, because I'm not massively into my Doctor Who, and even then the only ones I'm really into are like John Pertwee and Tom Baker. Everybody else, it's like I don't really care for their performance of the Doctor so much, or at least that incarnation of the way it was written anyway. But yeah, it's good that you're able to get hold of them on BritBox. There's one advantage of the service, I'll say, and it's not badly priced as well, as long as it sticks around about the I think it's like $5.99, $6.99, something like that. Hello, Titan of Serpents, how are you doing? Now, just get this a little bit more evened out. I'll get the template back on to see how that's shaping up. I hope this angle is going to suit everybody as well, as more I prefer doing it overhead so people can see my perspective of it. At the same time, it's really difficult to like view around a webcam, which surprising how much of a difference there was between the perspective of the sculpt compared to what I thought was accurate. I'm a sucker for making sure I get everything perfect. Okay, so I've got that. Let's pop this back on. Let's double check my edges. Yeah, man, on you go. There we go. So I need to So I've slowly started to get into grips with this polymer clay. Still not a massive fan of it personally, but I'm starting to get the hang of how it's starting to feel and the way its sculpting properties are done. There we go. Yeah, so I thought I was too much over. Oh, sweet. I take you're all caught up on all 6 episodes at the moment. I'll have to have a nosy at those. I'll be just drawing sometime, just in case people can't see this dialogue afterwards. Titan of Serpents says, I'm doing well. I was practicing drawing in the style of Primal today. So for those of you who are not familiar, Primal's the new Grendy Tarkovsky animated series. It's on Adult Swim in the States and on All 4 in the UK. It's a really, really good animated series. And I've tried on quite a few occasions to get people talking about it because, you know, in the meantime, while we're waiting for things like Camp Cretaceous to come out on streaming services, it's really, really good. And it's very much kind of like the adult forum as well. And when I say adult, I'd probably mean more like teen sort of age bracket, like 15, 16 maybe. It's quite brutal in places, but then in other places it's quite emotional as well. It's a really, really good series, and I can't wait to see the next 5 episodes, which I believe, if everything goes according to plan, will be out in the fall of this year, I believe. So there's supposed to be another 5 episodes, and apparently, I don't know how, but there's supposed to be an anthology movie as well. But I don't know if it's basically taking episodes from the 10 episodes to make into a movie, or whether they're actually creating something new. I would love to think they're creating something new, but that might be just be a stretch too far. I just recently watched it again on Monday. It's a great series. It's really, really good series. I know Jack Ewens and I have done a episode commentary on his channel. I think it was for episode 6. And I did try and do an episode commentary with a friend of mine on the YouTube channel a while ago, but I'm always a bit unsure when doing commentaries when it's just me and one other person, mostly because it's finding things to say, and sometimes I wonder whether people would find what just 2 people think are of interest compared to when it's a group of people, especially when it's a group of people that are interested in the subject matter. I mean, I would love to get someone like Clayton on, really, but he's a bit of a stickler for not really wanting to watch it, which is a shame, really. I think it would be right up his street if he actually gave it a chance, but everyone's got their own taste on these things, so it's not something I'm going to push, really. Timestone Serpent says my favorite episode is episode 4 so far. Now, if I remember rightly, that's the one with the bats, isn't it? Yes, the bats. That was a really good episode. The design of those bats actually remind me a lot of the bats that you get in Hotel Transylvania, and there's a part of me that actually wishes that we'd got Primal's version of those bats rather than the bats that we got in the film. They were quite menacing, and I love the twist at the end as well. A really, really good episode. James Thompson, the most art I do is writing. Can't even draw anything good anymore, so that sucks. I guess I'm practicing making decent YouTube thumbnails, closest I've gotten. What I will say to that, James, is there is no such thing as good art. Everyone has different interpretations of what they perceive to be decent and what's not. I mean, if you want to look at an art what's the word I'm looking for? Look at like art history in itself, right? You look at cave paintings, look how simple they are, and it's just basically a flowing arch with a bit of color and a basic form. At one point in time, that was high-end art, and people even view it as high-end art. But when you get to things like, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, the great Renaissance type artists, people tend to think, oh, this is the sort of level that we need to be doing. I honestly don't think there is anything wrong with doing things like stick figures and basic shapes, as long as the image that you are depicting tells the story that you want it to show. It doesn't matter whether it's something the equivalent of a cave painting or something that's the equivalent of a high-end picture concept art type thing. So don't ever feel like whatever you create isn't good enough, because it is. I look at this and I think how rubbish it is right now, but yet there are going to be people that will be looking at this thinking, actually, that's really good. I quite like this. So, everyone has their own interpretation of what is decent and what is not. There's been a perfectionist, and there's also been what's the word? Being a I forget the word, but yeah. James also follows on with, oh no, decent by my own standards. Like as a kid, I couldn't do decent dinosaurs based on like Walking with Dinosaurs and such. Other kids even liked them, but I'm so out of practice, I can't do detail anymore. It's easy to pick up again. I mean, I say it's easy to pick up again, but then you might be thinking, yeah, but I tried and I'm rubbish. I suppose one way I can probably suggest on that is, okay, see you later, Titan of Serpents. You take care now. Is tracing. And I know that sounds like it's cheating a little bit, but if you trace images that you like first and effectively train your brain and your hand how to do certain things, so things like your details, things like your flowing of motion, what posture, where weight goes and things like that, you will pick it up eventually. I mean, for majority of my early drawing life, all I ever did was tracing, and I think it's actually served me pretty well. I mean, I would never trace something and then put it out there and say, oh, this is my original art. I would never do that. But in terms of what helped me master kind of like how my muscle memory would go and the way I understood form and weight and what makes, I mean, things like this, the relief sculpting, that was just literally looking and training myself to do this sort of thing. This wasn't me going onto a tutorial to learn this sort of stuff. But tracing, I found, definitely helped to retrain myself, especially if you're trying to get a certain look to something like, say, the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, for example. That's a very specific look, and tracing will help with that. But just don't, like I say, try and fool anyone saying, yeah, this is my original design, because people will find out eventually, and it will bite you in the backside if you're not careful. Okay, take care, Tyson. Hopefully see you on the next one. Let's see. So I'm hoping this 8 o'clock stream will be a bit more easier for people, considering the amount of messages I had yesterday saying that 12 o'clock people were still in work and weren't able to make it. There's going to be a lot of I just realised actually I've not got my headphones in, have I? So you're probably going to be hearing this back. I don't know. I don't think it will be, just because I'm still learning how to use this material properly. Normally when I use the monster clay, I'm able to finish it with lighter fluid and texture things a little bit easier. Because this is quite a soft clay and it's also very springy as well, what I'm finding is it's not got that level of workability that I prefer in my medium. So I don't think it'll be finished this stream. However, I would like to get it finished relatively quickly, but then at the same time, because this is a commission piece and not just kind of like my own design, I don't want it to be to the point where the customer is looking at it and thinking, oh God, do I have to really pay for this? Okay, so how's that looking? It's looking better. All right, okay. Let's give this a once over with the ball. Okay. I've not got quite that right angle. Need to carve out a little bit more. The other disadvantage with this stuff as well is because it's quite soft, I don't want to be picking it up and putting it down every 5 seconds. So the advantage of Monster Clay is because it is so hard, you can get a 360 look with it. But with this stuff, because it's soft, it's you end up deforming it quite frequently, which isn't ideal. But have you had a lot of practice doing these? With the Monster Clay variants I have, but not with the polymer clay. This is a new medium for the same principle. But yeah, with the Monster Clay sculpts that I've done previously, I've got about 8 designs and then 9 individual pieces that make up the T-Rex skeleton. And then I've also got 6 other magnets on the side that I started in 2015, but then I've just kind of like fallen out of faith with them, just because of the size of them, really. So at some point I'm going to rework the scale of those and make them into a smaller design. So something along around the same size of this. This is about 7 by 7 centimeters, and I think that's a pretty good size for a magnet. Anything bigger than that, it's just it's overkill. It's a waste of material, and it's also a waste of magnetic strips, because you basically you're going to need for holding the thing up on a magnetic surface, especially if it's on something like a fridge where you're going to have things like every time you close the door it's going to vibrate, which if the magnet's not strong enough it'll just end up dropping off. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Down a bit. So I'll also do a little bit work on this off stream as well. So it's not just going to be stuff that's on camera where a lot of working and reworking is going to take place. However, what I will tend to do when I'm working off stream is I'll work on half the model to start with, and then when I stream anything it'll be on camera, so you effectively have half a finished model. Let's say finished, half a model that's closer to finishing, and then the other half's just kind of like catching up a bit, because sometimes these do take, I mean, it depends on how much detail you want to put into it, but normally I want to make sure there's enough detail in these to reflect the amount of work that goes into them, especially at the scale that this is, because I don't want people looking at these and thinking, oh well, I can just do that in 5 minutes, because it's not just a case of just making a shape and then baking it. It's making the shape, adding the detailing, getting the details so you can tell the different textures between items. You're effectively trying to make something unique and original, as opposed to something that's looks like it's been mass produced in a third world country. James says something nice about fridge magnets, maybe nostalgia, but mostly just convenience for hanging up letters. Yeah, I agree with you. Not necessarily with the magnets, the fridge letter thing sort of thing, but I do find that in a world of people that like to personalize themselves and put their own stamp on things, fridge magnets are underrated like that. And I know that sounds like the most geekiest thing anyone could say, but when you think about it as a kid, you know, how much fun did people have making words with the letters that you could get on a fridge? How many holidays did you go on that you come back with a fridge magnet and have that specific magnet either still in your collection or has a fond memory attached to it? How many times have you seen a fridge magnet where it's so beautiful in itself that you bought it just because it it speaks to you specifically. And that's the sort of goal that I want with these designs of my fridge magnets. I want them to have a kind of like a personal attachment to them. So whether it be Jurassic Park related or dinosaur related, or even just kind of like you're a geologist that loves the fossils, you know, I want these things to be something that kind of like speak to all sorts of walks of life. But it's finding the right way of doing it. I mean, I have made a set of magnets that are designed aimed really at kids to be so they can paint them themselves. So if they go to, say, a museum and they see a particular specimen that they really like, then, you know, my set has 6 colors that you could effectively paint your own design, really. So the sculpt itself would be what I've already made, but in terms of you know, making a unique memory, you know, it has that added value to it. The only problem is, though, is that for a start, I ain't a massive factory, so I can't produce these things quickly. But then whenever I've approached a museum to sell these, they're not willing to give it a try, which is quite frustrating, especially when, you know, you go to these museums to gather research and it's just not received in a positive light by the. I mean, it could be down to a number of things, really. It could be down to the fact that you've got packaging that isn't quite up to commercial standards, which, you know, it costs a lot of money to do that sort of thing, and that's just not something that I've got barrels of sitting in the wing or anything. It might be the designs themselves. They don't really want to invest in something that isn't quite to their standard. But I don't know. It's I mean, it might be down to the cost because they are so detailed that it's not just something quick that you can just pump out as well. So that might be that might be a negative on their part, but you know, it is what it is. Right, let's just get these psyched up. Okay. Wrong size. There we go. Kill me. Okay. Okie dokie then. So, get the template back over. Okay, so probably stretch out that lower beak a little bit more. Oops, 1 second. There we go. Let's see. That's better. Feels more like an actual beak now. Let's get this all looking right. Yeah, man. There we go. Okay. So seems to be out of sync again. Let's trim these down. So I hope everyone's having a productive time while in lockdown. I know I'm trying to be, which is unfortunate, really, because I'm soon I want to be in university finishing off this short film of mine for the Harryhausen Foundation. Since that's all gone to pot, I don't know quite what I'm going to do myself on that front, really. Feel like I've had a massive opportunity stolen away from me again, but you know, it's not like I've just completely given up on it. I just hope everything's gonna work out in a way that I can get back to it again afterwards and finish it off. There we go. Let's that one out a little bit more. Okay. Oh, it's a bit warm. In fact, what's that light level doing? Just give me a second. Yeah, definitely want to keep that on then. That's better. Okay. Come. There we go. Okay, so it's starting to come along now. So I need to still figure out how I'm going to do this relief side of the face. Which side is it? Yeah, this side. So yeah, so the issue that I'm facing at the moment is because this isn't a proper Triceratops skull, if I layer it the way I want to layer it, it's going to look daft. However, if I'm going to try and keep this sort of like triangular shaped formation, so not quite making it a true pyramid, but something along those lines. If I can do that effect, I think it should carry itself quite nicely. Because the other factor I've got that's a bit of a problem for me is that because these eyes are looking effectively at a slight angle, the brow sockets that would normally sit around the eye socket themselves have looked a bit out of place on a version that I did earlier on. So I don't know whether I'm going to try and just make them quite subtle in this particular sculpt, or whether they are going to just have to be quite pronounced in this particular incarnation. But one thing I will do is I'll make a star on. In fact, I need to measure that out, so I need to take you just to give myself that horn position. There we go. Okay, so just tap that in. Perfect. So another 20 minutes of doing this, and I'm going to call it a night. Okay. And one thing I definitely want to try and do with this particular sculpt as well is mirror the Triceratops that's in the London Natural History Museum. So get some of those features that are on that onto this. Okay. There's me a small one. There we go. Okay, shave that down. Okay. So there is a slight recess here, just above the nostrils, and then a small gap between that and what I assume is part of a beak attachment, and then that would then form the teardrop that comes down to the very tip of the beak. I might need to, but if I just kind of like get it in a position, I can just work that in slowly. So like I was saying earlier about how I prefer Monster Clay over this, normally this would be, I would shave a little bit off with a loop tool and then smooth it out with a lighter fluid on a brush, but I don't believe lighter fluid works on this stuff, so I'll have to do it with white spirits, but I need to get a different set of brushes. I don't want to contaminate the ones I've already got. Okay. Right, so let's see. Right, okay. So how am I going to do this then? So, this is actually quite a tricky one, actually. So the bottom of that cheek comes down here, and then it circles up towards there. So technically that recess is part of that lower cheek. So, geez, right, here we go. This is where it's going to get complicated. So I'll just pronounce that nostril out a bit more again. So that needs to sink down. And then what it looks like I need to do is have this part of the skull sort of like swing under the nostril and just kind of like meet there. At least that's what it looks like I need to do. Because the Triceratops structure is quite interesting, especially for something with a large nasal cavity. Okay, so swing that round again. Now, where does that bit go? So that is technically part of the upper nostril, so that needs to sort of like it's almost like a slight slope down. So this needs to be slightly more receded. just to make that bit pop a bit more. So this is what you'll find if I normally sculpt, that a lot of this is you know, slightly shaving layers off. It's not so much kind of like, you know, slap a piece on and force it around until it does the shape you want it to. You know, for me that's quite therapeutic, but I can also imagine for a lot of other people it's quite boring to watch, which is understandable. Okay, so now that we've got that part, so this needs to be more defined, so that needs to come out a bit more there. In fact, there needs to be a bit more of a pronunciation there as well. And then technically the eye socket would be attached to this part, but because that's more forward, what I might just do is shave this whole forehead back and have it dip down a bit. Okay, let's try doing it like this. Okay. It's starting to come along. Now quite like a challenge. In fact, what I might do is just marry that edge. Right, oh, we got 10 minutes, or yeah, 10 minutes, and then I'll sign off for the day. Hopefully, people are getting a interest in watching this. Not just kind of like my technique in doing this, but also brings out some kind of awareness in terms of like how much effort goes into these. It's not just like a 5-minute job. Okay. Okay, so that socket needs to be a bit more pronounced. Okay, 5 more minutes, and then that'll be it for the day, I think. Yeah, it's starting to look better on this side now compared to the other side. However, I think I need to do a bit more studies on the existing Triceratops skull just to kind of like get some of my formations looking right. Because I know Siki wants it like a hybrid between the two, between a real skull and his logo. But I just need to make sure I've got everything looking right. Okay. Wonder if where's my other tool? There we go. Wonder if that would be better. Ah, there we go. That's what I wanted. That's much better. Sorry, knocking the camera again. Okay then, right. Well, I think that's going to end the stream for today. I'm actually quite happy with the progress that I've made on that on this side of the face. I'm still unsure about the eye sockets, so I'm probably going to rework into those. Obviously, need to take more down on that forehead so it's not as prevalent as the other one. Obviously, once I've got the skull a bit more fitted for the design I've got in mind, then I can start work on the remainder of this dig site, which would be to make all these little tools and gizmos from Jurassic Park's Raptor site. So thank you very much for joining me on the stream. For once, I'm actually going to remember how to do this as well. Great, there we go. Right, yeah, so as you probably know, you can find me on social media, so things like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. But if you really want to, I've also set myself up on a site called Buy Me a Coffee. So it's a place you can leave donations. Minimum donations £3, but it's in figures of 3. So you could effectively put a donation of 1 amount in, 3 amounts, whatever you fancied. But yeah, the Buy Me a Coffee just basically helps me out while I'm still basically trying to set myself up as a freelance artist. But yeah, remember to subscribe onto my YouTube, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And 3am Creations is where I tend to run my Facebook business, but that's hit and miss sometimes. So Instagram and Twitter are the best ones to find me. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. See you later.